The year is 1999. That sentence brings me back to my senior kindergarten class when I was 5 years old, where we used to read out the date on the blackboard every single day. The year 1999 exists as a stain in my mind, as the memory that will not go away, no matter how hard I try to forget it. 1999 marked the year I lost my first tooth, my first time on a plane, and unfortunately, the early loss of my childhood innocence. That one memory that refuses to be wiped. It all started with that new or old TV. At the time, Pokemon was the latest fad to hit the school. Pokemon cards, games, stickers, and the most popular, the TV show. So of course, every time I came home from school, I would stay glued to the TV until Pokemon came on at 5. The only problem was that my dad watched the news at 5:30, and Pokemon episodes were back to back, which meant I had to miss an episode every day, something I whined about constantly. My dad got tired of hearing me complain every day. That must be why he went and bought another TV. My dad put the TV he bought in my room. Unfortunately, it was just an old, small boob tube with rabbit ears even. It also only had 20 channels available, not including the channel Pokemon was on. I really didn't care, though. I was just thrilled to have a TV in my room. After surfing through the channels, I came to the conclusion that only Channel 2, TVO Kids, was worth watching, so I watched that for a while. It wasn't for another few months until I discovered Channel 21. One day in April, I was flipping through the channels, trying to see if Pokemon was on. I pressed Channel 21 into the remote, hoping there would be more channels, and to my delight, there was. My dad was surprised too, but he let me watch it because it seemed to have kids programming on it. The channel was called Caledon Local 21, and I later found out it was indeed broadcasted from the town of Caledon, Ontario, a town very close to my city. The shows I saw on Caledon 21 were poorly made, and I never understood what was going on in half of them. However, as I grew up, every time I thought about that channel, I realized more and more how messed up the shows were, and I had to ask myself, what was I watching? The following is a list of shows and episodes I remember seeing on Caledon Local 21. How I remember such details disturbs even me, but I guess things like this stand out in the minds of a child. The channel only ran a few shows, probably because it was only operational between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. April 1999, Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 12. Very sketchy name, if you were to look at it nowadays. The show featured a guy in a bear mascot costume, who would get a new visitor in his cellar every day. It was always a kid. The show was filmed with a camcorder, and not a very good one either. The police asked me a lot of questions about this show. This episode started with Mr. Bear sitting at a table playing checkers by himself. He sat there playing for a bit until there was a knock on the door. The camera was then looking up the stairs at the door, where there was another knock. Mr. Bear climbed the stairs and opened the door to reveal 2 young children. One was a boy about my age. The other was a girl who looked about 8. Mr. Bear danced in delight and then started talking to the kids. I couldn't hear any of them that well, I remember. Mr. Bear then led the kids into the cellar, which was pretty dark, only lit by a small oil lamp on the table. I can't really remember that much more, except him singing a song, which I couldn't hear very well either, probably because of that large bear mask. The episode ended with them playing hide and seek, and the kids hiding in a closet, and Mr. Bear counting. May 1999. Soup and Spoon. I don't think this was even a show. I think it was more of a special movie thing. All I know is I stopped watching Caledon Local 21 for a while, because I thought This show was too stupid, especially since Pokemon now came on at 4:30 and 5. I don't remember much of it, but it showed a can of soup and a spoon, both attached to strings, swinging back and forth as if someone was holding them and dangling them in front of the camera. Interestingly enough, the show was shot in a basement, which looked a lot like the one used by Mr. Bear's cellar. Like I said, I can't remember much. The only thing I remember clearly was the end. The entire thing was only half an hour and just included stuff I found stupid, such as the spoon chasing the soup, trying to eat him. The ending showed a table and about 7 kids sitting around it, each with a bowl of soup in front of them. They were sitting and looking at the camera, but with confused, almost frightened faces. The cameraman then held the can of soup in front of the kids and said, "Spoons ready." And then it just stopped. July 1999. It was summer. I hadn't watched Channel 21 in a while. Till one day, when I slept over at a friend's house and decided to check it out again. My friend had gotten a TV in his room for his 6th birthday, so we stayed up late. For us, 9:30 was very late, and watched TV. That's when I remembered Channel 21 and brought it up to my friend. We decided to see if it was on, and to our surprise, it was. They must have changed their broadcasting times. Mr. Bear's Cellar, episode 23. This episode was entertaining for my friend and me, mainly because it had a lot of swearing. However, now when I think about the episode, I realize something was definitely wrong when it was filmed. The episode started with the camera on its side, while it was facing Mr. Bear, who was walking upstairs to the cellar door. The camera then blacked out for a few seconds, before fading in, back upright and facing Mr. Bear. There was also another kid talking to him, but this kid looked to be about 11 or 12. He was talking to Mr. Bear for a while, but I couldn't hear very well, again with the crappy camcorder, until the kid started raising his voice. The kid was saying how it was late and his sister had to go home. You could also hear more voices in the background. I remember Mr. Bear clearly saying, "Get the F out, you're not invited," with a deep voice muffled by the bear mask. I remember my friend and I looking at each other and laughing at the mention of the forbidden F word, but the episode got weirder. The kid began to climb the stairs before turning around and saying he was going to call the cops. Mr. Bear began to break into a run after the kid, who started screaming and running as well. The camera just cut out then, and that was the end of the episode. The channel then turned into static shortly after. August 1999. I didn't watch Channel 21 after that. In August, I grew more curious to see Mr. Bear's cellar for some reason, though. The last episode I saw of Mr. Bear was weird and had swearing, which also made me think the show was meant for teenagers. Nonetheless, I flipped onto Channel 21 when my dad was busy. Mr. Bear's Cellar, episode 28. Apparently, this episode had been playing the entire month of August. It was studied a lot by the police. The entire episode was just Mr. Bear sitting in a chair talking to the audience. "Hello, kids. Do you want to visit my cellar? If you do, please write me a letter at this address." The screen then switched to a white screen with multicolored letters reading the address. And that was what remained for the rest of the episode. This repeated for 5 hours every day until September came. And guess what I did? I sent Mr. Bear, or that sick bastard who portrayed him, a letter. I did it out of curiosity, mostly. My dad was okay with it because he thought it was a legit kid show. And then again, he never saw any of what I had seen on Channel 21. So I wrote a letter using my best writing possible. I think I just said how I wanted to meet Mr. Bear. So my dad sent the letter to the address Mr. Bear said on the show. It stayed on all day anyway for some reason. It took about a week to get a response, which I was surprised it did. I still have the letter I received on August 15th, 1999. The letter read, "Dear Elliot, thank you ever so much for your letter. I would love to have you in my cellar. We play games, watch movies, and go fire camping in the middle of the woods. Come to my house at," the police cut out the address, "Caledon, Ontario, Canada. I look very forward to having fun with you. Love, Mr. Bear." I cannot believe my dad never found this sketchy, because he actually took me to the guy's house. And then, that's when the police became involved. Those endless questions, those pictures of terrified kids, the woods. That brings me to why I'm writing this blog. That psycho and his friends did some screwed up stuff back then, and now, it seems, he's trying to get into contact with me again. The entire police thing is coming back. That has brought 1999 back to me. Over a decade later, it's happening again. November 14th, 2009. People have been emailing me, asking me what exactly happened in 1999. I will get to that. Those weird TV shows I was watching apparently were meant to attract kids to Mr. Bear's house. What Mr. Bear did shocked the entire town. My dad actually drove me to Caledon, along with the address Mr. Bear left on the letter. The house was actually on the outskirts of the town, in the open farmland. I still remember that house. It looked like an old farmhouse that looked to have been built in the early 1900s. The windows were all boarded up. The house looked to be in a state of disrepair. As we walked up to the house, I remember my dad checking the address over and over again and looking at the house in disbelief. Then the door opened. I expected Mr. Bear to be at the door, but I was surprised to see a police officer emerge from the creaking doorway. The officer began talking to my dad while I quickly asked if this was Mr. Bear's house. The officer's face cringed slightly, and he muttered, "Oh God," or something like that. He started talking quietly to my dad so I couldn't hear. My dad told me to go wait in the car. Then we just went home. My dad was quiet the whole way home. I felt like something strange had happened. My dad never told me what had happened, not for a while. I forgot about it anyway. Channel 21 no longer came on, and when I asked about it, my dad would not acknowledge its existence. I think it was when I was 13 that I learned the truth. I remembered Channel 21 one day and asked my dad about it. I guess he finally decided I should hear the truth. Caledon Local 21 was a local TV channel that ran from October 1997 to August 1999 in the Peel region of Ontario. The entire channel was made from a house in Caledon, the one I visited, and run by a man who was not really known by anyone in the area. The channel was only available to older TVs because the signal was one only picked up by rabbit ears, weaker signals, that is. The man created all the shows on the channel, all of which were kids' shows. He was Mr. Bear. He was the mysterious cameraman. The real reason he created the channel was more disturbing than what was originally thought. As you might have already guessed, he kidnapped kids and held them in his cellar. But while most people thought he was a serial-killing child molester, he really wanted to use the kids for another purpose. The day I arrived, the man had fled his house the night before, the day before the police went in to investigate. I wasn't the only one who was watching. December 2nd, 2009. Sorry for not answering any questions for so long. I haven't accessed my email account for some time. Anyway, let me finally set things straight about what I know. Back in October, I visited the house previously owned by the man who ran Caledon Local 21. 2 women lived there, operating a daycare business. How ironic. Now, to answer the questions you guys emailed me, who else watched Caledon Local 21? I know other people watched it, for sure, including those kids who wound up at Mr. Bear's house. After some Google searches, I found a few people on the No Seeker forum who were discussing shows from Caledon 21. They talked about the 2 shows that I watched, but also another 2 shows that I had never seen before. A user named I Am Real Life seemed to know all the shows that were broadcast on 21. Here are the 2 I've never seen. The Fallen Angel in Life. I Am Real Life described it as a fairly boring show about a guy rambling on in front of the camera about how we must please Satan and appease him before it's too late. Paint with the Soul. I Am Real Life and another user called Siggy92 were discussing this show. They described it as Blair Witch-like, as it consisted of the cameraman wandering around a forest at night, doing nothing particularly interesting. I'll go looking for the conversations to see if I can get the links. Question: where is Mr. Bear, or the guy who wore the costume? If I did know, I would have said earlier. I have no idea where the guy is, or if he's dead or alive. Hopefully dead. When I see my dad's friend next time, I'll ask him about this. Maybe I can get a more definitive answer. Question: what did Mr. Bear do to the children? Answer: this is by far the most common question I've been asked. I found this out in October as well, via my dad's friend, who is a retired Caledon regional officer. Apparently, the man playing Mr. Bear took the kids out of his house and into the forest nearby. What he did there, police are not entirely sure how it happened, but 16 charred bodies of children between the ages of 4 and 13 were found in a 15 by 15 foot ditch deep within the forest. My dad's friend did not want to go into exact detail, but I'm seeing him next Thursday anyway, so maybe I can extort some information from him then. That's all I have for now. Thanks for keeping an interest in my blog. I will try to gather as much information as I can for my next post. I've actually been getting pretty interested in it myself. It should be my right to know what the hell happened. January 14th, 2010. Sorry I haven't posted anything for a while. I kind of lost interest in this blog since I hit a standstill while looking for more information about the identity of the owner of Caledon Local 21. However, a few weeks ago, I struck gold. I found some answers, surprisingly, from the father of a kid I used to babysit. He lives just across the street, and I used to look after his kids when they were younger. He's also currently unemployed. He used to live near the woods outside of Caledon and witness the owner's activities in the woods. His name is Anthony Polo. When he lived in the small bungalow outside the woods, he would often venture into the woods to smoke a joint or two before returning to his work as a wood craftsman. Polo described that sometimes he would hear voices of children coming from deep within the woods, as well as a glowing light off in the distance. Polo told me these events started in late 1997. Note, this is around the time Caledon Local 21 began airing. He apparently became annoyed by this happening every once in a while and actually went to investigate. Polo then described what the whole scene looked like when he got there. There was a group of kids, he said about 13 to 17, the ages 5 to 12, gathered around a large fire pit with a burning fire. With them was a single adult. Polo talked to the man, noting his unusually unkempt appearance, something like a crack addict, as well as his consistent twitching, and asked what he was doing out in the woods with these kids. The man said they were on a camping trip, something they did frequently. Polo, not suspecting anything, Caledon has one of the lowest crime rates in Canada, simply left it at that and told them to be quieter. Polo then paused for a while before telling me that they never became quieter. In fact, sometimes he heard loud chanting from the children in an unknown language. He didn't bother meeting the man again, and he was moving away. I told Polo that the man was probably the owner of Camdon 21, but he doubted it, as he heard that the man was moving to Pickering by several other residents near that area. Here is what I know now. The man would take children into the woods regularly for camping. The fire pit Polo described may be the hole the bodies of the children were found in. The children Polo saw are probably the ones found dead. The man moved to a city called Pickering, a smaller city near the edge of Toronto. I will discuss this with my dad's friend, the ex-cop, and see if this matches anything the police knew about the man. I also want to know if he has any other knowledge about what was aired on Camdon Local 21. February 10th, 2010. Good news, guys. I talked to my dad's friend, and he discussed a lot of information with me. First, I asked if the police had any information on the man who ran Camdon Local 21. He replied that they have only had the same leads for years and never found a suspect. However, the Peel Regional Police do have some of the tapes found in the house of Camdon Local 21, the one it was broadcasting from. He took me over so I could watch a few. I guess I haven't said much about him yet. My dad's friend's name is Mitchell Wilson. Pretty nice guy. He seems to understand my thirst for knowledge on what happened during the late 90s in that house. He feels it was wrong for my dad to keep it from me for so long. He took me to the Davis Road police station. If you don't know, it's the largest station in Camdon and one of the largest within the Peel region itself. Each of the main stations around Peel have some of the tapes. I was able to watch all of the footage that the Davis Road station has. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to take any tapes home for obvious reasons. Paint with the Soul, Episode 10, Garbage Thrown Away. Paint with the Soul was one of the shows that I Am Real Life and Siggy92 discussed on Neoseeker. I told the police about this, and they informed me that 12 episodes of the show were made and broadcast between December 5th, 1997 and January 8th, 1998. Exactly as I Am Real Life and Siggy92 described, the episode opened with the cameraman wandering around in the woods. It appeared to be during the evening, as it seemed that the sun was setting. The cameraman walked along a path until he got to an area where there was a lot of garbage lying in the leaves. The camera looked around at the various wrappers, bottles, bags, and boxes, making sure each item got a few seconds of screen time. The camera then focused on a single area before the man spoke. I recall he spoke in a very timid, quiet voice, and I swear I've heard it somewhere else before, like on another Camdon Local 21 show. I could barely hear what he was saying, but he mainly talked about how humans are garbage, or something that had to do with saving ourselves by cleaning up the garbage. He means us, of course. It actually sounded really stupid, but still, a feeling of dread came over me. I mean, that forest was positively where those bodies were found, right? Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 25. When the police administrator brought the tape in, I actually said, "Oh, shit," and chuckled a bit out loud. Of course, I got stares from the staff, but Wilson explained to them about my little experience with Mr. Bear and how I still kept the letter that he sent me. Like the previous episode, this one included the guy wearing the bear mascot costume. The episode began with Mr. Bear waddling over to his cellar door with a bottle of orange juice in his paw. On the ground were 6 shot glasses, as well as a small bottle that contained an unknown liquid. Mr. Bear poured an equal amount of orange juice into each glass before opening the small bottle and depositing 1 drop into each glass. Mr. Bear then went off camera There were some minor sounds such as shuffling, and then Mr. Bear emerged from behind the camera location. Following him were 16 children. Some looked as young as 4, others looked like they were practically teenagers. As the kids entered, the administrator commented that this was the only episode that showed all 16 victims. The kids all looked rather content, except for this one who had visible bruises on his face, and unlike the other kids, he had a more fearful expression. He also looked about 11 or 12, which caused me to recognize him. He was the kid who had asked about his sister and subsequently met an unknown fate at the end of episode 23. That one episode I watched during July 1999. When I told the administrator this, he confirmed it was the same kid. He also featured in episode 24, an episode that only aired once at 3 o'clock on July 1999. The police have still not found the tape. Mr. Bear then broke into a song singing about citrus fruits and how good vitamin C was for you. I could barely hear the lyrics as they were muffled by the bear mask. The kids all drank their juice, the one from episode 25 doing so rather reluctantly, and the episode ended. After viewing the tape in possession of Davis Roads Police Station, I'm satisfied, but only temporarily. I still want to know the full story. The police just keep giving me the same crap about the creator of Camdon 28 being a fetishist pedophile, as well as an apparent cultist. I'll sign off for now, get into university first, and get information later. Hopefully, I'll get back to this blog as soon as possible. May 8th, 2010. Last month, I finally got my G2 license. In Ontario, Canada, this allows you to drive a car by yourself, as well as with some passengers after 6 months. I, of course, took advantage of this and drove into Camdon for a little Sunday drive. Since I haven't updated this blog in a while, I figured I might as well visit the house where the infamous channel of my childhood was located. The house looked different than when I last saw it in October. The place was no longer used as a daycare and just sat there abandoned. However, it did have a for sale sign showing that someone still owned it, wanting to get rid of it, it would seem. The abandoned house drew fuzzy memories from my mind, mainly of that day my dad took me to visit Mr. Bear. A feeling of dread came upon me. What happened to the children while they were living in that house? I walked up the steps to the front door and peered through the window. Inside, I could see a nearly empty hallway with a few boxes at the end. At the end of the hallway, to the right, was an open doorway, presumably leading to the kitchen. To the left were 2 doors, both apparently leading to the rooms visible through the windows outside. I wondered where the cellar entrance was and whether it had been sealed up. I walked around to the back of the house and found my answer. 2 wooden doors, lying at an almost flat angle, were padlocked shut. This had to be the cellar. Not wanting to hang around, you cannot imagine what was going through my mind at the time, I departed. Behind the house, the empty field continued on until it reached a dense forest that lined the horizon. I wondered if that was the forest where the bodies of the children had been found. I thought, screw it, and proceeded to walk across the field behind the house and into the forest. The forest was oddly quiet, save for the periodic sounds of a woodpecker drilling into a distant tree. I continuously made my way deeper into the woods, not really caring about the fact that I had no idea where I was going. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like there was something I had to find. I came to a thinner part of the woods, and a few small houses stood in the distance. Polo's house crossed my mind as I wondered if one of those homes had belonged to him. I neared a small clearing in which I could see 3 adequately sized logs gathered around a black charred area, showing a small fire had been lit there very recently. "Hey, get out of our fort!" Those woods nearly gave me a heart attack. I turned to my left and saw 2 dark-clad people running towards me. My initial thought was to run. However, as they came closer, I saw they were really just kids in their early teens, probably 13 or 14, maybe even 12. As they approached me, they realized my size as well. I'm 6'1", while they could have been no bigger than 5'8". One might have even been 5'7". "Well, we said get out," the larger one said, who was wearing a Slipknot t-shirt. I stood my ground and shrugged. The shorter one was wearing a Metallica shirt, and he swung out a butterfly knife and held it in my direction. "No, you wouldn't want to," I said in a deep, serious tone, trying to sound as badass as possible. I pulled out my cell phone. The 2 kids withdrew, the one in the Metallica shirt putting away his knife. "Look, dude, we don't like people in our fort, so can you just go?" The one with the Slipknot shirt said, obviously intimidated. I had no business in the forest anyway, so I uttered out a single "fine" and turned before I realized I had a great opportunity. "Did either of you hear of a guy who murdered a bunch of kids in these woods about 13 years ago?" I asked. The 2 looked at each other in confusion before the one wearing the metallic shirt answered. "Yeah, everybody knows about that guy," he said, as if I were stupid. The kid in the Slipknot shirt continued. "He still lives around here in the storm drain. My big brother says he saw him in a bear costume once, wandering around the forest at night." My instincts told me this was probably a lie, and the owner of Camdon Local 21 is probably long gone, only existing as folklore in this small, isolated community. However, as a human, the thought of a mysterious unknown sparks interest within me. "And where is the storm drain?" I asked, just out of curiosity. I didn't actually believe the kid's story. The kid in the Metallica shirt stared at me for a moment, his eyes seemingly full of annoyance, yet curiosity as well. "You're not from around here, are you? Why did you even come here?" Now, I do admit I was slightly startled by the nature of the question. However, I figured I might as well explain why I was here, just in case people mistook me or my intentions. I told the 2 kids about my experience with the man in Camdon Local 21, and that I had come to maybe seek out some sort of closure, although even I wasn't exactly sure how. The 2 kids seemed familiar with the channel as they smiled and looked at each other when I mentioned it. They also became more understanding and gave me a detailed description on how to get to the storm drain. Shortly after, I decided to turn around the way I had come and head back to town, leaving the kids and their fort. But now, you're probably wondering why I left out such details about what the kids told me just now. It's because I'm choosing to conclude what I've gathered for now. Here is what the kids told me. The storm drain lies ahead of the kids' fort, same direction I was heading. The drain ends at a small river where access to the water is drained out. Near here is a small playground. The kids told me that people rarely use it. The man supposedly lives in the large pipe that rainwater drains out of. People have seen him, although always either wearing a bear mask or the mask in a full-body bear costume. I don't believe this is true, and in fact, simply a myth made by the residents of Camdon. The story does not seem plausible in any way. Why did no one call the police? Didn't the guy look suspicious? And other questions like these leave the story invalid. I may visit the storm drain, not because I believe the story, but because it was an excuse to visit Camdon again. So this blog doesn't die. With no more tapes to watch, I don't know what else to talk about. Thanks for continuing to support me and my blog. I know many of you are looking forward to more information about what happened in Camdon during the year 1999. I'll do my best to continue my research into the topic. Elliot out for now. Update, October 7th, 2010. Wow, nearly 5 months since my last update. I'm guessing everyone pretty much thinks I'm dead, right? Thankfully, I'm not, but in all seriousness, I really have been busy these past few months, and a blog about something that could have killed me as a kid is a little low on my current priority list. As of now, I'm living in Waterloo, Ontario, attending the University of Waterloo for computer engineering. Yeah, I'm a keener. As you can imagine, engineering is no walk in the park, so obviously, I nearly forgot about the blog. But as you can see, I'm back. I remembered to visit the storm drain the kids from Camdon Forest told me about. It was out in a clearing between the wooded areas, nearly a marsh. Unfortunately, I found absolutely nothing, save for a turtle that retreated into his built-in home. I snapped some pics of the pipe, which I've posted as well. Also, let me tell you, it's not a storm drain like they said it was. What I saw was a simple pipe, possibly to channel the access water from the marsh. When I returned from Camdon, however, I simply kept putting off uploading everything until I forgot all about my blog. It just didn't seem important anymore. Please forgive me. It wasn't until only recently that I'm now interested in my case again. On September 10th, I received an email from this email address, returntheb@hotmail.com. Funny, am I right? Well, it gets better. I'm going to copy and paste the exact email this guy sent me. Dear Elliot, my dear, dear boy, you see, this story may or may not be true, but it could happen. There are many slots for airtime. If you have money, you can have access to public TV channels. Some public access channels share airtime, like EWTN, religious channels based out of Michigan. That shows Catholic-based programming, but during off hours have independent shows or just blue screens. Cable networks have Amity channels available for rent space. So, the scenario of a pedo renting a channel on basic TV is not as far-fetched as you might think. However, public access TV is widely reviewed and can be terminated at any time. These are the rules for the United States, not for Canada, where this story takes place. So, this is happening in the U.S. The pedo would be tracked and arrested immediately. Yes, this story could happen, but it's unlikely. 100 fuzzy hugs, Mr. Bear. Now, obviously, this letter is fake and sounds almost corrupted, but still, I'd like to thank whoever sent it, though they could use some English lessons. Just reading this letter creeped me out, but because of it, I'm now full of this new interest to continue my blog. I guess it's just funny to try to pursue the mystery I've always questioned. Now, my roommates know all about this. They thought the letter was real and actually seemed more scared than I was for a second, but then I shrugged it off, so he did too. I mean, what are the chances of this being real? How could Mr. Bear know all about public access TV and about when I went to Camdon on those occasions? More or less know my email or me still interested in the seller. It's fantasy, totally. I'm going to send a reply to return the B. Wow, just looking at that email address, you can tell someone wanted to freak me out. It didn't really work, though. Although, whoever sent it, thank you for sparking my interest back in the full matter. Maybe I can find out more about what happened to Mr. Bear, hopefully, because although I don't buy the email, part of me still feels a little anxious. Thank you to all those who are still following me and have become avid fans. You're also why I'm choosing to continue this. Thanks, guys. November 7th, 2010. Wow, I can't believe this blog hasn't been deleted yet. I haven't posted anything for so long. I have my reasons, and I'd rather not discuss them yet, but it's been a rather traumatic year for me. Some of you were right. I shouldn't have gone back, trying to relive the mysteries of my childhood, but I couldn't resist. It's been over a year since my last post, and a lot has happened. Let's recap where I'm at right now with regards to the whole Mr. Bear incident. returntheb@hotmail.com is no longer in use. I tried replying to the email, but I got no reply. I tried again a while back, but still no response. I've actually moved up to Ottawa, capital of Canada, for those who don't know, for university, so I haven't been back to Caledon, or back in the Peel region, for a while. I had my reasons for leaving, as you can guess why. I've had to make a new email account because people keep prank emailing me, pretending to be Mr. Bear. Thanks a lot, guys. Not. Why have I ventured back to this blog? Mitchell Wilson, remember my dad's ex-cop friend, gave me a phone call on October 23rd about a tape that was found in a branch of the Brenton Public Library. Brenton is my hometown, in case you hadn't picked up on that. He claimed he isn't allowed to discuss the contents of the tape with me, as it's still evidence, but he asked me to come check it out when I return home. That tape got the gears grinding again because we all know what was on the last tape I saw. I can only imagine what can be on this one. I'm guessing it must have something to do with Caledon Local 21. I guess I just wanted to say that I'm continuing this blog, and thanks for everyone who's still following it. I don't know when the next entry will be, but when I see the tape, I'll write what I find. I don't know what to expect, but the idea of seeing another tape has gotten me interested in the whole mystery all over again. Update, January 21st, 2011. It's been a long year for me. University has been giving me the usual sleepless nights, especially since I transferred to Ottawa, which is the place to party. Yeah, right. But now I'm back home with my dad in Brampton, the town I grew up in. I got home on the 18th of December, and I've been visiting my friends and family, or at least that's what I would rather have done. Now that the festive holiday cheer that I usually have at this time of the month is absent. To answer the hundreds of emails and comments I got, yes, I did see the tape that my dad's friend promised to show me. These tapes, however, act as a curse. I want to know more, yet I want to forget everything. I couldn't help it. I needed to see the tapes. Not only for myself, but for all you guys who are just as intrigued as I am by that ominous man in the bear suit from my past. However, after viewing those tapes, I feel that pit of dread deep inside me once again. That feeling where I know that all those kids in those videos are dead. That I could have been one of those kids, and that humanity is a dark, dark place. If you haven't skipped this paragraph for the juicier details below, thanks for listening to my rambling. On January 1st, I called Mitchell and asked if there was time for him to come by and show me the tapes. Things are pretty slow at the station because of a snowstorm, so he said he could come down any time that day. The tapes were located at a branch not too far from me, so I braved the slushy roads and terrible Brampton driving and made my way to Peel, the original police station located in Bromella City Center. I met Wilson at the front desk, where he led me to the second floor and into a small office. He instructed me to have a seat and wait while he went to get the tape. Before leaving the office, he turned to me and said, "I know you're curious, but are you sure you want to see this?" Of course I did, or at least I thought I did. Besides, Wilson's friend had pulled a lot of strings to get me in here, and I didn't want the opportunity to go to waste. This particular station had 2 tapes on hand. I was only able to watch a few minutes of footage, however, because the second tape was apparently too damaged to be played in a VCR. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 30. Mr. Bear never ceases to disturb me, especially after what almost happened to me when I was younger. The episode took place outside the forest at dusk, making it slightly hard to see, especially considering the quality of the film, a trademark of anything on Caledon Local 21. The episode started with the camera being held in the paws of Mr. Bear, aiming it at himself. That bear mask, it looks more sinister in the shadows of the trees. The unmistakable muffled voice spoke up. "Hello, children. Today, I'll be doing a wonderful thing for my friends. I'll be delivering them to a faraway land where they will surely be happy." Mr. Bear turned the camera around to show an ATV with an attached trailer. But what stood out the most was the trailer contained 7 motionless children lying side by side. "This here is the first load, but more will be on their way soon." Mr. Bear turned around and pointed the camera at a large burlap tarp spread on the ground. He picked the tarp up, revealing a large hole that must have been about 12 feet deep and maybe 15 feet wide. The rest of the episode consisted of Mr. Bear taking each kid and dropping them into the hole. I asked Wilson if they were dead, to which he shook his head and replied, "Not yet." Soon all the kids were in the pit. Some were in awkward positions due to being tossed in, but they remained unconscious. "The vitamin C will surely help these children on the great journey that awaits them," Mr. Bear mentioned as he panned the camera towards multiple bottles of gasoline beside a bush. The camera zoomed into the bottles as Mr. Bear hummed before the episode ended. Wilson revealed to me that these were 7 of the 16 victims found burnt to a crisp. The gasoline is what the man playing Mr. Bear used to light them on fire. A pit full of burning children. Who would do such a thing? That feeling of dread found me once again, and I realized that I could have been one of those kids. Wilson then explained to me that they had previously lied. The other tape, confiscated by the police, did indeed work, and contained the filming of the actual burning. However, he felt that I wouldn't be able to handle the disturbing and graphic nature of the episode. You know what? Maybe I can't. I don't even want to see it. I'm satisfied for now, but I just need some time to get myself together. The thing is, the man who ran Caledon Local 21 is still out there. More to come soon. Once upon a time, there lived a little boy named Elliot. Elliot was a clever boy who loved playing with his friends. One day, he watched a lovely television show about a bear and his children friends. The children loved helping each other, as good children should, but they also loved the bear. The bear loved the children since the children were so good at helping him, and the fallen angel. The children and the bear wanted to play together forever with the help of their angel friend, but the fallen angel needed more help, so the children had to give the ultimate sacrifice, because that's what friends do, Elliot. They help each other. Help us, Elliot. Burn with us, Elliot. I want you, Elliot. He wants you, Elliot. Come back to my cellar, Elliot. Please help with sugar and icing on top. Mr. B. INRI. Update. April 5th, 2011. I wanted to update again. I truly did. However, certain circumstances have turned me off to the whole Caledon Local 21 thing. I've since had hundreds of emails about my blog and was even in contact with a magazine about my story. But now was the time to come clean with everyone, where I've been for an entire year. The story of Pandora's box is true, and I opened it. When I reached the second tape in the possession of the police branch. The other subject I'd like to address is the number of joke, fake emails I've been getting from people claiming to be Mr. Bear. Let's start with the second tape, as that's what traumatized me into stopping my search temporarily. After a few weeks of playing silent, I decided to ask Mitchell Wilson if I could view that infamous second tape he had talked about. I don't know why. I just felt that viewing the tape would give me some closure. Wilson was obviously reluctant to show me, but I was persistent. He gave me an offer. If I was still interested by the time I turned 20, he would show me the tape. Not being able to do much else, I just played the waiting game. By the time my 20th birthday rolled around, I was definitely still interested in viewing the tape. I gave Wilson a call, during which he admitted that he had hoped I would forget about it, and asked me again. But I'm not taking no for an answer. You really don't need to see it, he kept telling me, but I did need to see it. I had to at this point. Sure, he invited me to the Bramelow Station branch one Monday afternoon, having watched every Saw film and videos of animals in a slaughterhouse during my ethics class. I felt sure I'd be able to handle whatever the tape could throw at me. I was wrong. Mr. Bear's Cellar, episode 31. When Wilson went to collect the tape from evidence, the officer in charge of the evidence room shook his head at me, his face saying, "What are you doing?" Wilson explained that this tape included the last known episode of Mr. Bear's Cellar. I rightfully assumed that I would be seeing the fate of the children, and began to feel dread. The episode opened up inside a forest, the usual one from the previous episodes. That fact took me a while to realize because it was night. The trees and leaves just looked like shapes dancing around in the darkness. A faint glow of light was present on the right side of the screen. There wasn't any apparent audio. It appeared to be a windy night, yet the trees weren't making any noise. Slowly, the camera began to pan towards the glow, revealing smoke rising from a hole with the tips of flames peeking over the top. Wilson paused at this point. "Are you sure you want to see this?" he asked me. I insisted on it, even though a voice in my head was telling me not to. The video continued. The cameraman moved towards the hole, showing a pit of fire. This was the hole that had been seen in the previous episode. Only this time it was filled with shapes. I could see shapes moving around, fluttering, flailing, some motionless. I knew perfectly well what they were. The camera began to adjust to the light and burning flesh. Red, black, a blur of surreal movement and colors. I wish I could forget what I saw, but you can't forget a scene like that. This was not a horror movie, this was reality. Human beings were being killed in a horrifying way, a fate that I could have potentially met. The video suddenly cut to dawn, the camera now positioned further away from the hole. The fire was out, however, there was still smoke rising up. A figure was up ahead. I recognized it right away. The Mr. Bear suit was laid out on the ground, empty. It looked just as unnerving. The suit was laid in the shape of a cross. The cameraman did a lap around the suit, treating it like a treasured artifact. Placed at the head of the suit was a sign. In bold red letters, INRI was printed there. The cameraman looked back to the end of the suit, zooming in on the bear's face. The episode finally ended. I was speechless. It was like a dream. You can find a lot of terrible things on the internet, but I had never seen anything like this. Wilson asked if I was okay, and I replied with a shaky, "Yeah." I assured him as we left that I was fine and that the video gave me some closure over the whole incident. He didn't seem too confident in me, but he left it at that. He was right, though. I had nightmares for weeks. I gave up. I didn't care about the whole thing anymore. A sick man burned a bunch of kids alive, attracting them with a fake kids TV channel. I could have been one of those kids, yet I'm still here. Suppose I should be grateful, but I just feel guilty. Am I still here because of pure luck? 10 months later, I'm back, but now I need to address something else. My email has been flooded with messages. Some people ask for more details. Some ask if I can upload the tapes, and some people email me claiming to be Mr. Bear. First, I can't get the tapes uploaded, as they're A, in police possession as evidence, and B, I have no idea how to transfer VHS onto a computer. As for the people pretending to be Mr. Bear, you're not fooling me. When you have dozens of people pretending to be the same person, it doesn't work. I've seen the fake Caledon Local 21 YouTube channel, which is cute, but still not real. Even more annoying is the fact that someone hacked my account just to put up some demented poem about me in this blog. I'll leave it in the entry above this one, just to show you guys. I have contacted the webmaster about the entry and was told that it was posted on Halloween. Oh, so spooky. Attached to the email, paintwithb@aol.com, which I assume is another joke email. I'm over episode 31 now. The image that I saw will stick with me for a while, but I want to do one last hurrah. I will get into contact with Mitchell Wilson again, and hopefully get set up with the tapes in the possession of the other Peel Region Police Department branches. I'll try to update you guys as soon as I can. I'm sure this won't be the last you hear of me. Thanks to everyone who will read this. Elliot.